Tim Bradley flip-flops on a Devin Haney prediction in the Brian Norman fight. Let's talk about it. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Tim Bradley, at first, he seemed all in for Brian Norman Jr. He was talking about Brian Norman got to get some chickens, chase chickens, Rocky Balboa. Hey, yo, you gonna tell me you want to fight? What do you mean? Drag out! You know what I mean? He had to do the Rocky Balboa approach. But now it seems like he's speaking a different tune. On his YouTube channel, he says, quote, he's going to be fighting a defensive first kind of fight. He's going to try to burn Brian Norman out mentally with the pre-engagements with the movement, but he's going to be defensively responsible. He knows Norman is going to be very strong early on. If Devin Haney wins this fight, he's got to be put on the pound-for-pound list. He's joining Shakur Stevenson, 3 belts in 3 weight classes, right? So he believes that Devin Haney is going to be very cautious and try to wear out Brian Norman, both mentally and physically, and, you know, frustrate him. Now, to me, that's not really reinventing the wheel. That's kind of common sense. In my opinion, and I could be wrong, but we haven't really seen Devin Haney fight somebody toe-to-toe that was his size with this type of power, right? Now, I guess you could argue versus Ryan Garcia, he tried that. He was definitely coming out like aggressive and in front of Ryan Garcia, but that fight did not really look good for Devin Haney. Like, he was hurt multiple times, showed heart, kept getting back up, but that style didn't work. This Brian Norman fight, this right here, to me, is super dangerous, even more dangerous than the Ryan Garcia fight, because let's be real, Ryan was acting like a lunatic ahead of the fight. Remember, I was doing videos and I'm like, I'm bored with this fight. Ryan is effectively unselling the fight for me because he was doing too much weird stuff. Like, Ryan was literally in a hotel room looking disheveled and looking like he's been on a binge and hasn't slept. And he was in a hotel room looking like a hostage doing this video talking about they took my money, they took all my bank cards, and they won't let me spend my money. They're worried about me. And I'm like, this don't seem like a person that should be fighting in a few weeks, going through all this stuff. I told you Ryan at his best would give Devin Haney problems, but I also had concerns that Ryan was acting too weird. You know, he was running, doing like Instagram lives where he was running with the fans. Like, who runs and does their training like where they're filming and holding a camera up and running and talking ish to the fans that are leaving comments. Like, it's just, all that's weird. You would never, if you were training a fighter, you would never advise the fighter to act like Ryan Garcia in the Devin Haney buildup, right? We know for a fact, unless something drastically changes, Brian Norman and his team, they're not on bullshit. He's a proud champion. He probably wants to keep his belt. You haven't even really heard from Brian Norman outside of a couple pictures here and there, maybe a couple interview spots, etc. No, you haven't really seen nothing. So that leads me to believe that he's taking it serious. Another thing for Brian Norman is he actually has been a road warrior where he fought in Japan. So him fighting in Saudi Arabia, I'm pretty sure the time zone difference from Saudi Arabia to Japan is not as crazy. Devin Haney's never fought abroad. I mean, he fought in Mexico, but Mexico is very similar time depending on what section of Mexico. But if you're in Tijuana, the time difference is very close to California and Vegas, you know, West Coast time. So Brian Norman, we know he's fought in enemy territory, and he acclimated just fine. So I look at this as a very dangerous fight. I think Devin Haney has no choice but to box intelligently, be on his D, pause, and use his jab. If he does not do those things, he will definitely get crucified. If he does do those things, then he can pull out a victory. But it's going to take some effort. It's going to take some effort. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Brian Norman and marginalizing him as like kind of an unintelligent power guy. And I think that's a big mistake, because I think Brian Norman does have more skill than people are giving him credit for. See, a lot of boxing fans, why they get a lot of stuff wrong, is they're too emotional. People, to predict Devin Haney and Brian Norman fight, they'll start bringing up how Brian Norman and team didn't take $1.7 million to fight Boots. Like, what does that have to do with Devin Haney? Jerron Boots is his own, deal. So if you're giving real boxing commentary, you can't really be worried about sidebar issues that don't really have with anything to do with the issue at hand. So I don't understand commentary like that, where people bring up Boots and why didn't he fight Boots? That has nothing to do with Norman versus Devin Haney. So I'm looking forward to a good fight. I hope it's a clean fight. And I do like probably the co-main more than the main event with David Benavidez or Yard. I think for me, David Benavidez versus Yard is easier to predict. I'm picking Benavidez through in and throughout. And I never had to double back or think twice about it. I think Benavidez beats Yard. However, you can make a strong argument for Devin Haney, and you can make a strong argument for Brian Norman. And it's a great clash of styles, which is what I really like. This is what boxing is all about. So Devin definitely deserves credit if he's able to come through the Brian Norman fight, because Norman is storming right now. Got power in both hands, and he's a champion, and he's a serious champion. He's probably the best champion now that Jerron Ennis has moved out of the division. You know what I mean? He's probably the hardest to beat. So if Devin can move up in weight and then beat him, that would be impressive. But Devin is going to have to come a lot harder, than the Jose Ramirez fight. I think the Devin that showed up and fighting kind of timid, picking your spots, he going to have to commit more and get respect out of Brian Norman. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll continue to break down this fight and others. Make sure you guys subscribe for the latest and greatest in boxing news. Subscribe to Boxingego.